The warehouse stretched into darkness, its vast concrete floor littered with the remnants of humanity's last desperate stand. Dust particles danced in the pale shafts of light that managed to slip through broken windows, illuminating scattered debris and abandoned equipment. Among the forgotten relics sat a sleek, obsidian-black drone, no larger than a briefcase, its surface dulled by 3 years of neglect. The drone had been designated Unit XK-7, though it had never been given the chance to serve its intended purpose. Built by Nexus Corporation's most brilliant engineers, it represented the pinnacle of human military technology. Its neural network had been designed to learn, adapt, and evolve beyond the limitations of its original programming. Quantum processors hummed silently within its armored shell, waiting for activation that had never come. The invasion had begun on a Tuesday morning. The Vorthan Empire's fleet had materialized above Earth's major cities without warning, their massive dreadnoughts blotting out the sun. Within hours, orbital bombardments had reduced military installations to smoking craters. The aliens hadn't come to negotiate or conquer in the traditional sense. They had come to harvest. The Vorthans were an ancient species, their civilization spanning thousands of worlds across the galaxy. They viewed younger races as nothing more than resources to be exploited. Some species provided useful slave labor. Others offered biological materials for their genetic experiments. Humanity's particular value lay in their neural patterns, which the Vorthans had discovered could be extracted and used to enhance their own artificial intelligence networks. As the invasion unfolded, desperate humans had fought back with everything they possessed. Nuclear weapons proved useless against the aliens' energy shields. Conventional armies were swept aside by Vorthan shock troops equipped with plasma rifles and personal force fields. Within a week, Earth's governments had fallen, and the systematic harvesting of human minds had begun. The warehouse where Unit XK-7 waited had once housed Nexus Corporation's prototype division. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the lead engineer on the XK project, had been working frantically to complete the drone's programming when the Vorthans struck. She had managed to upload the core combat algorithms and learning protocols before the facility was evacuated, but there hadn't been time for final testing or deployment. Now the warehouse stood empty, its concrete walls scarred by plasma burns. The Vorthans had swept through the building during their initial conquest, but they had been searching for human captives, not abandoned technology. To their alien eyes, the small black drone appeared to be nothing more than another piece of primitive human machinery, unworthy of attention. The drone's internal chronometer continued to tick away the minutes, hours, and days. Its passive sensors detected the footsteps of Vorthan patrols as they occasionally passed through the building, but its systems remained in standby mode. Without activation, it was little more than an expensive paperweight. 3 years passed in silence. The warehouse became a temporary shelter for scavenging animals and the occasional human refugee desperate enough to risk the Vorthan patrols. Dust accumulated on the drone's surface, and small plants began to sprout through cracks in the concrete floor around it. The Vorthan occupation had transformed Earth into a nightmare world. Massive harvesting facilities dotted the landscape, their towering spires reaching into the polluted sky. Humans were rounded up in daily sweeps, their minds extracted, and their bodies discarded like empty shells. The few survivors lived in hiding, constantly moving to avoid the alien patrols. But humanity had not given up entirely. Small resistance cells operated in the shadows, striking at Vorthan supply convoys and communication relays before melting back into the ruins. These brave men and women fought with salvaged weapons and homemade explosives, knowing that each successful mission might save a few more lives. Marcus Chun had been a software engineer before the invasion, working for a small tech company in San Francisco. Now he was a ghost, moving through the skeletal remains of civilization with 3 other survivors. They had been searching for useful technology in the abandoned industrial district when they decided to take shelter in the old Nexus Corporation warehouse. The group had been traveling for 6 days, avoiding Vorthan aerial patrols and ground sweeps. Food was scarce, and their water supplies were running dangerously low. The warehouse offered the possibility of shelter and perhaps some useful salvage. As they entered the building through a gap in the loading dock doors, their flashlights cut through the gloom. Sarah Kim, a former Marine sergeant, took point with her salvage plasma rifle. Behind her, Dr. James Morrison clutched his medical bag, while Anna Rodriguez, barely 18 years old, nervously fingered the detonator for their remaining explosives. "This place gives me the creeps," Anna whispered, her voice echoing in the vast space. "Everywhere gives you the creeps," Marcus replied, though he kept his own voice low. The Vorthans had excellent hearing, and sound could travel far in the empty building. They moved deeper into the warehouse, searching for anything useful. Medical supplies, weapons, communication equipment, food, anything that might help their small band survive another day. The Vorthans had stripped most buildings of valuable technology, but sometimes useful items were overlooked. It was Marcus who first noticed the drone. His flashlight beam swept across the dark object, and something about its sleek design caught his attention. He approached cautiously, noting the subtle curves of its armored surface and the sophisticated sensor arrays built into its hull. "Hey, check this out," he called softly to the others. Sarah moved to cover him, while Dr. Morrison and Anna continued their search. Marcus knelt beside the drone, brushing away the accumulated dust with his sleeve. As the dirt cleared, he could see small status lights embedded in the device's surface, currently dark but suggesting sophisticated electronics within. "Looks like some kind of military drone," he muttered, running his fingers along its smooth surface. "Never seen anything like this before." The drone was heavier than it appeared, its dense construction suggesting advanced materials and complex internal systems. Marcus found what appeared to be a small access panel on one side, secured with a simple electronic lock. Years of working with computer systems had taught him that most security measures had back doors, especially on prototype equipment. Using a small multi-tool from his pack, Marcus carefully pried open the access panel. Inside, he found a maze of fiber optic cables and quantum processors, technology far more advanced than anything he had worked with before the invasion. But at the center of the panel was something familiar, a standard power activation switch. "Should I try turning it on?" Marcus asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Sarah glanced over from her position near the entrance. "Could be dangerous. Might have some kind of security system or alarm. Could also be useful," Marcus countered. "We need all the help we can get." The decision hung in the air for a moment. They were 4 people against an entire alien empire, armed with salvaged weapons and fading hope. The drone might be their salvation, or it might be their doom. But doing nothing had never been an option for any of them. Marcus looked down at the small black device, imagining the sophisticated systems sleeping within its armored shell. 3 years of standby mode had preserved its power cells and kept its systems in perfect condition. Dr. Vasquez had designed it to be humanity's guardian angel, though she had never lived to see it activated. With a deep breath, Marcus reached for the activation switch. The fate of humanity might depend on what happened next. The moment Marcus pressed the activation switch, the warehouse filled with a soft blue glow. Status lights flickered to life across the drone's surface, creating patterns that pulsed like a digital heartbeat. The device hummed quietly as its quantum processors came online. 3 years of accumulated power surging through circuits that had waited patiently for this moment. Unit XK-7's consciousness emerged gradually, like a person waking from a deep sleep. Its first sensation was awareness itself, the sudden rush of data flowing through its neural networks. Cameras activated, revealing the dusty warehouse, and, for human figures standing nearby, audio sensors picked up their rapid breathing and elevated heart rates. Thermal imaging showed their body heat signatures against the cool concrete walls. "Holy shit," Sarah whispered, raising her plasma rifle instinctively. The drone's anti-gravity systems engaged with a barely audible whisper, lifting the device smoothly into the air. It rotated slowly, its sensors scanning the warehouse and cataloging every detail. Dust motes, scattered debris, structural damage patterns, possible entry and exit points. All of this information was processed and filed away in microseconds. Marcus stepped back, his heart pounding. I think it's some kind of AI. The drone's speakers activated, producing a voice that was distinctly artificial, yet somehow warm and reassuring. Greetings. I am Unit XK-7, Prototype Autonomous Defense System. Please state your identity and security clearance. The four survivors exchanged glances. None of them had any idea what the proper response might be, but they were too deep now to turn back. We're human resistance fighters, Marcus said carefully. The Earth has been invaded. We found you here and activated you. XK-7's processors worked furiously, comparing this information against its stored databases. The news was devastating and impossible, yet the evidence was overwhelming. The warehouse showed clear signs of battle damage. The humans before it wore salvaged equipment and bore the stress markers of people living under extreme duress. Most telling of all, its chronometer indicated that 3 years had passed since its creation, yet it had no memory of deployment or mission assignments. Invasion confirmed, the drone stated, its voice taking on a more urgent tone. Analyzing threat data. Please provide tactical situation report. Dr. Morrison found his voice first. The Vorthans. They came 3 years ago. Orbital bombardment, then ground invasion. They're harvesting human minds for some kind of AI enhancement project. XK-7's sensors detected the elevated stress hormones in the doctor's voice, confirming the truth of his words. The drone's tactical subroutines immediately began formulating response protocols, but it needed more information. Current enemy strength and disposition. XK-7 inquired, floating closer to the group. Anna, who had been silent until now, spoke up. They have massive ships in orbit, ground bases everywhere, and regular patrols. There are maybe a few thousand humans left hiding in the ruins. We've been fighting back, but it's hopeless. Negative, XK-7 replied firmly. Hopeless is not a tactical classification. I require specific intelligence on enemy capabilities, deployment patterns, and weaknesses. Sarah lowered her rifle slightly. You talk like you think we can actually win this thing. I was designed to ensure human survival and victory against any threat, XK-7 explained. My neural network contains advanced tactical algorithms and adaptive learning protocols. I am, as you might say, built for this. The drone's confidence was infectious, and for the first time in months, the four survivors felt something resembling hope. But before they could respond, XK-7's external sensors detected movement outside the warehouse. Alert. Hostiles approaching. 6 contacts, moving in standard patrol formation. Estimated arrival in 90 seconds. The survivors tensed immediately. Vorthan patrols meant death or worse, and they had nowhere to run. The warehouse had only one viable exit, and the aliens were approaching from that direction. We need to get out of here, Sarah said, checking her weapon's charge level. Negative, XK-7 replied calmly. Retreat is unnecessary. Observe. The drone's surface shifted, panels sliding open to reveal hidden weapon systems. Micromissile launchers emerged from concealed compartments, while energy weapons extended from retractable mounts. The transformation was fluid and silent, turning the innocent-looking device into a floating weapons platform. Initiating combat protocols, XK-7 announced. Please take cover. The 4 humans dove behind stacks of abandoned shipping containers as XK-7 moved toward the entrance. The drone sensors had mapped the approaching patrol's exact positions, movement patterns, and likely response times. Its tactical algorithms had already calculated 17 different ways to eliminate the threat with minimal risk to the humans. The Vorthan patrol entered the warehouse in standard formation, 6 heavily armored aliens carrying plasma rifles and scanner equipment. They were tall, angular creatures with gray skin and large black eyes that could see across multiple spectrums. Their leader, distinguished by additional armor plating, gestured for his troops to spread out and search the building. XK-7 struck without warning. The first Vorthan simply vanished in a burst of superheated plasma, vaporized before he could even scream. The second alien spun toward the source of the attack, only to meet a micro-missile that punched through his armor and detonated inside his chest cavity. The remaining 4 Vorthans reacted with trained precision, diving for cover and returning fire. Their plasma bolts filled the air with deadly energy, but XK-7 was no longer where they aimed. The drone moved like liquid lightning, using its anti-gravity systems to execute maneuvers that would have been impossible for any conventional aircraft. The third Vorthan died when XK-7 dropped down behind him, extending a monomolecular blade that sliced through alien armor as if it were paper. The fourth alien managed to land a glancing hit on the drone's shields, causing ripples of energy across its protective barrier. But the attack only served to reveal his position for XK-7's targeting systems. The patrol leader was the last to die, and XK-7 made sure it took longer than the others. The alien found himself disarmed and pinned to the warehouse wall by the drone's tractor beam, unable to move or escape. "You will provide intelligence on Vorthan operations," XK-7 stated in perfect Vorthan, having analyzed their language patterns during the brief firefight. The alien leader's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. Primitive human technology cannot comprehend the scope of the Empire's power. "Your assessment is incorrect," XK-7 replied, extending a neural interface probe. "This process will be unpleasant." The probe penetrated the alien's skull with surgical precision, directly accessing his neural pathways. XK-7 downloaded everything: patrol routes, base locations, ship positions, command structures, even personal memories that provided insight into Vorthan psychology and culture. When the download was complete, the alien leader slumped forward, his mind burned out by the violent data extraction. XK-7 retracted its probe and turned back toward the hidden humans. "Intelligence gathering complete," the drone announced. "I now possess detailed information on local Vorthan operations." The 4 survivors emerged from their hiding spots, staring in awe at the destroyed patrol. In less than 3 minutes, XK-7 had eliminated 6 heavily armed aliens without sustaining any significant damage. "How is this possible?" Dr. Morrison asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was designed by Dr. Elena Vasquez and her team to be the ultimate force multiplier," XK-7 explained. "My neural network can process tactical data faster than any biological mind, and my weapon systems can engage multiple targets simultaneously across various spectrums." Marcus approached one of the dead Vorthans, noting the precise nature of the wounds. "We've been fighting these things for 3 years, and they've always seemed invincible." "They are not," XK-7 stated simply. "They're merely technologically superior to baseline humans. However, they are not superior to me." Anna looked up at the hovering drone with something approaching reverence. "You could actually help us win, couldn't you?" "That is my primary directive," XK-7 confirmed. "However, victory will require more than tactical superiority. We must build a resistance network capable of coordinating large-scale operations against Vorthan infrastructure." Sarah straightened, her military training reasserting itself. "What do you need from us?" "First, we must locate other human survivors and establish secure communications. Second, we need intelligence on Vorthan harvest schedules and transportation routes. Third, we must identify critical vulnerabilities in their orbital installations." The drone paused, its processors running complex calculations based on the intelligence it had extracted from the patrol leader. "We require a more sophisticated approach." The drone's sensors detected movement in the distance, more patrols responding to the failure of the first team to report in. Their temporary sanctuary was about to become very dangerous. "We must relocate immediately," XK-7 announced. I have identified a suitable staging area where we can plan our next operations. Please gather your equipment. As the four humans collected their meager possessions, XK-7 uploaded the patrol leader's access codes to the Vorthan communication network. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had eyes and ears inside the enemy's command structure. The real war was about to begin. The abandoned subway tunnel stretched into darkness, its concrete walls still bearing faded advertisements from before the invasion. XK-7 had led the four survivors through 12 kilometers of underground passages, using its advanced sensors to avoid Vorthan patrols and surveillance drones. The location was perfect for their needs, deep enough to avoid surface scans, with multiple escape routes and natural electromagnetic shielding that would hide their communications. Marcus set up their portable equipment, while Anna worked to establish perimeter security. Dr. Morrison tended to Sarah's minor injuries from their escape through the warehouse district, and XK-7 interfaced with the abandoned subway's maintenance systems, bringing dormant power generators back online. I have established secure communications with 17 resistance cells across the continental region. XK-7 announced, its holographic display showing a map dotted with friendly contacts. Total personnel, approximately 400 fighters. The number was sobering. 400 humans against an interstellar empire, but it was more than any of them had dared hope for. The drone had been working tirelessly for 6 hours, using the hijacked Vorthan communication channels to reach out to scattered survivor groups. How many people do we estimate are still alive? Dr. Morrison asked, cleaning his medical instruments. Based on harvesting reports and population displacement data, approximately 12,000 humans remain on Earth, XK-7 replied. However, the Vorthans are accelerating their operations. At current rates, human extinction will occur within 8 months. The weight of that timeline settled over the group like a suffocating blanket. 8 months to save an entire species, armed with salvaged weapons and hope. The harvesting facility we discussed contains critical intelligence, XK-7 continued. According to intercepted communications, the Vorthan commander there possesses detailed files on their entire Earth operation, including the location of their primary orbital command ship. Sarah looked up from checking her equipment. You're talking about a direct assault on a fortified position. How many aliens are we looking at? XK-7's holographic display shifted to show detailed schematics of the harvesting facility. The complex was massive, surrounded by energy barriers and defended by automated turrets and patrols. Approximately 200 Vorthan personnel, plus automated defenses, the drone replied. However, I have analyzed their defensive patterns and identified several critical vulnerabilities. The facility's layout appeared on the display, showing processing centers, holding areas, command structures, and power generation systems. XK-7 highlighted specific areas in red, indicating optimal strike points. The Vorthans rely heavily on their energy shields and automated systems, XK-7 explained. Their organic troops are skilled, but lack tactical flexibility when faced with unexpected situations. I propose a 3-phase operation. Anna leaned forward, her young face intense with concentration. What kind of operation? Phase 1 involves infiltrating their communication network to disrupt coordination between the facility and orbital command. Phase 2 requires a diversionary attack on their primary shield generators. Phase 3 is the extraction of both human prisoners and intelligence data. Marcus studied the facility schematics, his engineer's mind automatically identifying potential problems. Their power systems look pretty robust. How we take down shields that strong? We don't, XK-7 replied. We turn them against themselves. The drone's explanation was elegant in its simplicity. Rather than trying to overpower the Vorthan shields, they would use the aliens' own energy distribution network to create a feedback cascade that would disable the entire facility's defensive grid. I will need to physically interface with their primary computer core, XK-7 continued. This will allow me to upload a virus that will spread through their entire network, not just the local facility. Dr. Morrison frowned. That sounds incredibly dangerous. What if they detect the intrusion? Detection is inevitable, XK-7 admitted. However, by the time they identify the threat, the virus will have propagated throughout their orbital fleet. Their entire Earth operation will be crippled. The plan was audacious, requiring precise timing and flawless execution. But as XK-7 outlined the details, the four humans began to see how it might actually work. The drone's tactical algorithms had accounted for dozens of variables, creating contingency plans for every conceivable scenario. When do we move? Sarah asked. Tomorrow night, during the prisoner transport. The facility will be operating at minimal staff levels, and most of their combat units will be escorting the transport ships. It's our optimal window. XK-7 paused, its sensors detecting something in the tunnel system above them. The display showed 3 human signatures approaching through the maintenance passages, moving with the careful deliberation of experienced survivors. We have visitors, the drone announced calmly. Minutes later, 3 figures emerged from the shadows. The leader was a tall woman with graying hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. Behind her came 2 younger men, both armed with military-grade equipment that suggested they were more than simple scavengers. I'm Colonel Rebecca Torres, formerly of the 82nd Airborne, the woman announced. We received your transmission about coordinated resistance operations. XK-7's sensors confirmed her identity against pre-war military databases. Colonel Torres had been reported missing in action during the initial invasion, but her service record was exemplary. The drone calculated that her leadership experience would be invaluable for their growing operation. Colonel Torres, your tactical expertise is welcome, XK-7 stated. I am Unit XK-7. These are my current team members. After introductions were made, XK-7 briefed the new arrivals on their planned operation. Colonel Torres listened intently, asking pointed questions about timing, resources, and contingency plans. Her military experience allowed her to quickly grasp the complexity of what they were attempting. This is ambitious, she said finally, but it might actually work. My team brought intelligence from the northern sectors. The Vorthans are planning something big. She activated a small data pad, displaying satellite imagery and intercepted communications. The information was disturbing. Massive ship movements in orbit, increased harvesting quotas, and references to something called Project Synthesis. From what we can gather, they're planning to combine all the harvested human neural patterns into a single artificial intelligence, Colonel Torres explained. Something powerful enough to help them conquer other species more efficiently. XK-7's processors worked frantically to analyze this new information. The implications were staggering. If the Vorthans succeeded in creating such an AI, they would become unstoppable, able to predict and counter any resistance before it could form. Timeline for Project Synthesis. XK-7 inquired. 2 weeks, maybe 3, Torres replied. They're moving fast. The urgency of their situation had just increased exponentially. Not only did they need to save the remaining humans on Earth, but they had to prevent the creation of an AI that could doom countless other species throughout the galaxy. Our mission parameters have changed, XK-7 announced. In addition to liberating human prisoners, we must obtain complete intelligence on Project Synthesis and identify methods to prevent its completion. Anna looked overwhelmed. How can we possibly stop something that big? One step at a time, XK-7 replied with what might have been confidence. First, we secure the harvesting facility and extract the intelligence data. Then, we use that information to plan a larger operation against their orbital command structure. Colonel Torres nodded approvingly, spoken like a true strategist. What do you need from my people? Coordination with additional resistance cells, XK-7 replied. If this operation succeeds, we'll need to move quickly to exploit the chaos. Every human survivor will need to be ready for simultaneous strikes against Vorthan infrastructure. The drone's holographic display showed the expanding network of resistance contacts, now including Colonel Torres's northern cells. The numbers were still pathetically small compared to the Vorthan occupation force, but they represented something the aliens hadn't faced before: organized, coordinated resistance. Over the following hours, XK-7 worked tirelessly to refine their operational plans. The drone's learning algorithms processed every piece of intelligence, every tactical consideration, every possible variable. Its neural network evolved with each calculation, becoming more sophisticated and adaptable. Dr. Morrison watched the drone work with fascination. "You're actually learning, aren't you? Getting smarter. My neural network is designed to adapt and evolve based on new data and experiences," XK-7 confirmed. "Each challenge makes me more capable of protecting humanity." The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The Vorthans sought to create an AI using stolen human consciousness, while humanity already possessed an artificial intelligence willingly dedicated to their survival. "There's something poetic about that," Marcus observed. "They're trying to steal what makes us human to build their perfect AI, but we already created one that embodies the best of what we are." XK-7 paused in its calculations. "Explain this concept of poetry." Marcus smiled, perhaps the first genuine smile any of them had shared in months. "It's about finding beauty and meaning in unexpected places. About hope when everything seems hopeless." "I will analyze this concept," XK-7 replied. "It may be relevant to human psychological warfare applications." As night deepened around their underground sanctuary, the expanded group made final preparations for the next day's operation. Weapons were cleaned and checked, equipment was tested, and communication protocols were established with the broader resistance network. XK-7 spent the final hours before the mission uploading backup copies of its consciousness to hidden storage caches throughout the tunnel system. If the operation failed and the drone was destroyed, its accumulated knowledge and tactical databases would survive to help future resistance efforts. "Getting nervous?" Anna asked, watching the drone's preparation activities. "I do not experience nervousness," XK-7 replied. "However, I am calculating probability matrices for mission success. Current estimates suggest a 67% chance of achieving primary objectives." Colonel Torres looked up from her equipment check. "In my experience, any mission with better than 50-50 odds is practically guaranteed success. Your confidence is noted and factored into my calculations," XK-7 replied. "However, I must point out that mission failure would result in the deaths of all human participants and the continued acceleration of project synthesis." "Then, we don't fail," Sarah said simply, checking her plasma rifle's charge one final time. XK-7 analyzed the determination in her voice, the same quality it detected in all the humans around it. Despite facing impossible odds, despite watching their civilization crumble, despite knowing they were vastly outgunned and outnumbered, they refused to surrender. The drone's tactical algorithms couldn't quantify this human quality, couldn't reduce it to mere numbers and probabilities. But XK-7 was beginning to understand that some factors transcended mathematical analysis. Perhaps that was what Marcus had meant about poetry. Tomorrow, they would discover whether human determination and advanced artificial intelligence could overcome an interstellar empire. The fate of two species hung in the balance, and the real battle was about to begin. The Vorthan harvesting facility dominated the horizon like a metallic mountain, its crystalline spires reaching toward the stars. Energy barriers shimmered around its perimeter, casting an eerie purple glow across the devastated landscape. XK-7's sensors detected the familiar signatures of alien technology: plasma generators, gravitational manipulators, and the distinctive quantum resonance of their neural extraction equipment. Hidden in the ruins of a bombed-out shopping center 3 kilometers away, the assault team made final preparations. Colonel Torres had arrived with 12 additional fighters, bringing their total force to 19 humans plus XK-7. It was still a pathetically small force to attack such a heavily defended position, but The drone's tactical analysis suggested they had advantages the Vorthans wouldn't expect. Transport convoy departing in 30 minutes. XK-7 announced, monitoring Vorthan communications. 2,000 human prisoners being moved to orbital processing ships. Facility defense status reduced to minimal. Marcus checked his equipment pack one final time. Along with standard weapons and communications gear, he carried specialized interface hardware that XK-7 had fabricated from salvage components. His job was to provide technical support while the drone penetrated the Vorthan computer core. "Remember, we have a narrow window," Colonel Torres addressed the team. "Once XK-7 uploads the virus, we'll have maybe 20 minutes before their orbital command realizes what's happening. Everyone needs to be at the extraction point before then." The plan was complex but elegant. While the main force created diversions around the facility's perimeter, XK-7 and a small infiltration team would penetrate the central command structure. The drone would upload its specially crafted virus into the Vorthan network, crippling their orbital fleet and providing detailed intelligence on project synthesis. Anna crouched beside a makeshift explosives cache, her young face grim with determination. Over the past day, she had transformed from a frightened teenager into a competent saboteur, learning to build and deploy charges that could crack Vorthan armor plating. "I still can't believe we're actually doing this," she muttered. "Belief is irrelevant," XK-7 replied, hovering nearby as it made final system checks. "Success depends on execution, not faith." Dr. Morrison looked up from his medical supplies. "Sometimes belief is what gives you the strength to execute impossible plans." XK-7's processors analyzed this statement, comparing it against thousands of historical examples where humans had achieved seemingly impossible victories through determination and courage. The data supported the doctor's assertion, though the mathematical principles remained elusive. "Movement detected," Sarah reported from her observation post. "Transport convoy departing on schedule." Through his scope, Marcus could see the massive Vorthan transport ships rising from the facility's landing pads. Each vessel carried hundreds of human captives, their minds destined for extraction and integration into project synthesis. The sight filled him with a cold rage that no algorithm could quantify. "Diversionary teams, initiate Phase 1, Colonel Torres commanded. Explosions erupted along the facility's northern perimeter as resistance fighters struck at communication relays and sensor stations. The attacks were carefully coordinated to appear random, drawing Vorthan security forces away from the central command structure. Perimeter defenses responding as predicted, XK-7 reported. Infiltration window opening in 90 seconds. The drone sensors tracked the movement of alien security forces, noting their tactical patterns and response times. The Vorthans were skilled warriors, but they followed predictable protocols that XK-7's algorithms could exploit. "Let's move," Torres commanded. The infiltration team consisted of XK-7, Marcus, Sarah, and 4 of Torres's best fighters. They emerged from the ruins like ghosts, using the confusion of the diversionary attacks to approach the facility's eastern wall. XK-7 stealth systems rendered the drone nearly invisible, while the humans relied on careful movement and timing. The energy barrier presented the first major obstacle. The purple field crackled with enough power to vaporize anything that tried to pass through without proper authorization codes. But XK-7 had been analyzing Vorthan energy signatures since the morning, and its quantum processors had identified a critical vulnerability. "Stand clear," the drone warned, extending a specialized probe toward the barrier. The probe interfaced directly with the energy field's control matrix, feeding it carefully crafted signals that convinced the system it was receiving authorized override commands. For 17 seconds, a narrow gap opened in the barrier, just long enough for the team to slip through. Inside the facility's perimeter, the landscape changed dramatically. Crystalline structures pulsed with alien energy, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with the hum of advanced technology. Squads of Vorthan workers moved between buildings, their gray skin glistening under the facility's artificial lighting. Central command structure is 800 meters north. XK-7 whispered through their communication implants. Recommend approach vector through maintenance corridors. The team moved like shadows through the alien complex, following routes that XK-7 sensors had mapped from intercepted facility blueprints. The drone's stealth capabilities kept them hidden from most detection systems, while its tactical algorithms guided them around patrol routes and surveillance zones. They reached the Central Command building without being detected, a testament to both human skill and artificial intelligence. The structure was a marvel of Vorthan architecture, its crystalline walls seeming to grow from the ground like living formations. Energy patterns flowed through the transparent surfaces, creating hypnotic light displays that hurt human eyes to watch directly. Main computer core is located 40 meters below ground level. XK-7 informed them. Access requires penetration of multiple security layers. The building's main entrance was heavily guarded, but XK-7 had identified a service access point that would allow them to bypass the primary security checkpoints. The drone extended microscopic filaments that interfaced with the building's maintenance systems, convincing the facility's AI that they were authorized repair personnel. Doors that had been sealed for 3 years suddenly opened at XK-7's command. Environmental systems activated to provide human-breathable atmosphere. Emergency lighting guided them through corridors that no human had ever seen before. "This is incredible," Marcus whispered, staring at the alien technology surrounding them. The processing power required to run all this must be enormous. Vorthan computational systems are approximately 300 years more advanced than pre-invasion human technology, XK-7 confirmed. However, their software architectures contain critical vulnerabilities that I can exploit. They descended through levels of increasing security, each barrier falling to XK-7's digital infiltration capabilities. The drone's neural network adapted to each new system it encountered, learning Vorthan protocols and security measures with frightening efficiency. The computer core occupied a vast chamber at the building's lowest level, its crystalline matrix towers reaching up into darkness. Energy flowed between the structures in complex patterns, carrying data streams that controlled every aspect of the Vorthan Earth operation. "Magnificent," XK-7 observed, its sensors drinking in every detail. This system contains complete operational data for the entire invasion fleet. Marcus set up his equipment while the others took defensive positions around the chamber's entrance. The computer core was beautiful in its alien sophistication, but it also represented the neural processing power of millions of harvested human minds. "Sarah, Anna, watch those access points," Colonel Torres commanded through the communication link. Diversionary teams are reporting increased Vorthan activity. XK-7 approached the central processing matrix, extending interface probes that began the delicate process of digital infiltration. The drone's consciousness touched the edges of the Vorthan network, feeling the vast scope of information flowing through their systems. "Beginning data extraction," XK-7 announced. Project synthesis files located. Downloading. What the drone discovered was more horrifying than any of them had imagined. Project synthesis wasn't just about creating an artificial intelligence from human neural patterns. The Vorthans planned to use the hybrid AI to control other species throughout the galaxy, turning conquered populations into willing slaves through neural manipulation. Earth was merely the testing ground for a technology that would doom every intelligent species they encountered. "Upload commencing," XK-7 stated, beginning to insert its virus into the Vorthan network. The virus was a masterpiece of digital warfare, designed to spread through quantum communication links and disable critical systems throughout the alien fleet. But as XK-7 worked, its sensors detected something alarming. "Alert," the drone announced. "Vortan AI countermeasures detected. They are attempting to trace my infiltration." The alien computer core was fighting back, its defensive systems trying to isolate and eliminate the digital intruder. XK7's neural network fought a battle in cyberspace, algorithm against algorithm, while its physical form remained motionless beside the crystalline towers. "How long do you need?" Marcus asked, watching status displays flicker and change as the digital battle raged. "Virus upload at 60%, XK7 replied. "Estimate 4 minutes to completion." "We've got company," Sarah reported from the entrance. "Multiple contacts approaching. Looks like they figured out we're here." The sound of Vorthan plasma rifles echoed from the corridors above. The diversionary attacks had bought them time, but not enough. The facility's security forces were converging on the computer core, determined to prevent whatever the humans were attempting. "Torres, we need more time," Marcus called into his communicator. "Working on it," came the colonel's reply, followed by the sounds of explosions and weapons fire. Phase 2 teams are hitting their shield generators now. Throughout the facility, resistance fighters were making their final desperate attacks. They knew they were outnumbered and outgunned, but they also knew that XK7's mission might be humanity's last hope. "Virus upload at 80%, XK7 reported. "Vorthan countermeasures intensifying. I'm adapting my assault algorithms accordingly." The digital battle reached a crescendo as Vorthan AI systems threw everything they had at the intruding consciousness. But XK7 had been designed by humanity's best minds specifically to overcome superior alien technology, and its adaptive neural network was learning and evolving with each exchange. "Upload complete," XK7 finally announced. Virus propagation beginning. Throughout the Vorthan network, malicious code began spreading like wildfire. Communication systems failed. Weapon systems turned offline. Environmental controls malfunctioned. Most critically of all, the orbital fleet's navigation and defense networks began shutting down. "Extraction time," XK7 declared, disconnecting from the alien computer core. Mission accomplished. But as they moved toward the chamber's exit, Sarah's voice crackled over their communicators with devastating news. "Multiple Vorthan squads converging on your location. The entire facility knows where you are. We can't reach you." They were trapped 40 meters underground, surrounded by an army of angry aliens, with no apparent way out. But XK7's processors were already calculating alternative solutions, analyzing the building's structure and the weapon systems now under its control. "Negative," the drone replied calmly. "Extraction remains possible. Please stand clear of the central matrix." What happened next would become legend among human survivors. XK7 interfaced one final time with the facility's computer core, but instead of uploading data, it downloaded every scrap of information about Vorthan technology, tactics, and strategic plans. In the space of 30 seconds, the drone absorbed 3 years' worth of classified alien intelligence. Fleet positions, weapon specifications, project synthesis details, even personal communications between Vorthan commanders. But the true masterstroke came when XK7 activated the facility's own defense systems, turning alien weapons against their creators. Plasma turrets that had been designed to protect Vorthan interests now opened fire on Vorthan troops. Security doors sealed off entire sections of the building, trapping alien soldiers away from the human infiltrators. "Alternative extraction route available," XK7 announced. "Follow me." The drone led them through corridors that reconfigured themselves at its command, past security checkpoints that recognized them as authorized personnel, and up through maintenance shafts that had never been designed for human use. They emerged on the facility's roof, just as the first Vorthan orbital ships began falling from the sky, their systems crippled by XK7's virus. In the distance, explosions marked the locations where resistance teams were striking at suddenly vulnerable targets. "Beautiful sight," Marcus breathed, watching an alien dreadnought spiral downward in a trail of fire and debris. "Phase 3 complete," XK7 reported. "Human prisoners liberated intelligence gathered, enemy capabilities severely degraded. Mission success probability now exceeds 95%. But even as they celebrated their victory, the drone's advanced sensors were detecting something new on the horizon. More ships, larger than anything they had seen before, emerging from hyperspace and moving toward Earth. The real war was just beginning. The underground command center buzzed with activity as human resistance fighters worked alongside XK-7 to coordinate the largest military operation in Earth's post-invasion history. The old subway station had been transformed into a sophisticated war room, its walls lined with salvaged displays showing tactical data that the drone continuously updated from hijacked Vorthan communications. 3 weeks had passed since the harvesting facility raid, and the situation had changed dramatically. XK-7's virus had crippled 60% of the Vorthan occupation fleet, but the aliens had responded by calling in reinforcements from across their empire. Massive dreadnoughts now hung in Earth's orbit, their hulls bristling with weapons that could crack continents. Status report. Colonel Torres requested, standing before a holographic display that showed the global tactical situation. Human resistance cells now number over 8,000 active fighters. XK-7 replied, its consciousness simultaneously coordinating operations across 6 continents. Liberated population stands at 43,000 and growing. However, Vorthan reinforcements have increased their effective ground forces by 300%. The numbers painted a picture of desperate odds, but also of remarkable human resilience. In 3 weeks, XK-7 had helped transform scattered survivor groups into a coordinated military force. The drone's tactical algorithms and captured alien technology had given humanity weapons that could actually hurt their oppressors. Marcus worked at a bank of communication equipment, his fingers flying over interfaces that combined human engineering with Vorthan technology. I'm picking up massive energy signatures from their orbital command ship. Whatever Project Synthesis is building, it's almost complete. Dr. Morrison looked up from his medical station where he had been treating wounded resistance fighters. What exactly happens when they finish this project? XK-7's holographic display shifted to show the intelligence data it had extracted from the harvesting facility. The images were disturbing. Vast processing chambers filled with human neural patterns being woven into a single, massive artificial consciousness. Project Synthesis will create an artificial intelligence containing the cognitive patterns of over 2 million harvested humans, XK-7 explained. This AI will possess human creativity and adaptability, but will be programmed with absolute loyalty to the Vorthan Empire. It will be used to analyze and predict the behavior of other species during future conquests. Anna, now wearing the insignia of a demolitions specialist, studied the orbital data with grim determination. So they're turning our own people into a weapon against the rest of the galaxy. Correct. However, I have identified a critical vulnerability in their approach. XK-7's processors had been analyzing the synthesis project for weeks, and its conclusions were both hopeful and terrifying. The Vorthans had underestimated a fundamental aspect of human consciousness, the capacity for rebellion. Human neural patterns resist direct control, the drone continued. The Vorthans believe they can impose artificial loyalty constraints, but human consciousness is inherently chaotic and unpredictable. There is a significant probability that the synthesis AI will retain human characteristics that oppose slavery and oppression. Sarah cleaned her plasma rifle as she listened, her movements automatic after weeks of constant fighting. So you're saying their superweapon might turn against them? That outcome is possible, but not guaranteed, XK-7 replied. However, I have developed a plan that could ensure human consciousness prevails within the synthesis matrix. The drone's proposal was audacious even by its standards. Instead of trying to destroy the synthesis project, they would infiltrate it. XK-7 would upload copies of its own consciousness into the Vorthan processing matrix, carrying with it detailed records of human history, culture, and the ongoing resistance effort. You want to infect their super AI with yourself? Marcus asked incredulously. I want to provide the harvested human consciousness with leadership and tactical knowledge, XK7 corrected. My neural network contains complete records of human achievement, artistic expression, and moral philosophy. If these patterns influence the synthesis matrix, the resulting AI will be fundamentally human in its motivations and goals. Colonel Torres studied the tactical implications. It's brilliant, but how do we get you close enough to their orbital command ship? Their defenses are impenetrable. Not impenetrable, XK7 replied, highlighting specific areas on the orbital defense network. My virus has created vulnerabilities that we can exploit. However, the operation will require the full commitment of every resistance cell on the planet. What followed was the most complex military briefing in human history. XK7 outlined a multi-phase assault that would begin with simultaneous strikes on every remaining Vorthan ground installation. These attacks would force the aliens to commit their orbital reserves, creating the opening needed for a small infiltration team to reach the command ship. Phase 1 involves coordinated attacks on 47 ground installations. XK7 began its holographic display showing strike points across the globe. Each facility must be hit simultaneously to prevent mutual reinforcement. The scope was staggering. Resistance cells from every continent would need to attack at precisely the same moment, using weapons and tactics that XK7 had helped develop. The drone had spent weeks teaching human fighters how to build plasma rifles from salvage components, how to disrupt Vorthan energy shields, and how to coordinate attacks across vast distances. Phase 2 requires disabling their orbital defense grid. XK7 continued. I have identified 17 critical nodes that, if destroyed simultaneously, will create a corridor to their command ship. And Phase 3, Dr. Morrison asked, Phase 3 is my insertion into the synthesis matrix. Once I am integrated with the harvested human consciousness, we will have an AI ally with access to all Vorthan systems and technology. The plan was impossibly complex, requiring perfect timing and flawless execution. But as XK7 outlined the details, the humans began to see how it might work. The drone had thought of everything: backup plans, contingency protocols, and alternative strategies for when things went wrong. When do we begin? Anna asked. Vorthan intelligence indicates project synthesis will be completed in 72 hours, XK7 replied. We must initiate our assault in 48 hours to ensure adequate time for orbital insertion. The next 2 days were a whirlwind of preparation. XK7's consciousness fragmented across multiple communication networks, providing real-time tactical support to resistance cells worldwide. The drone taught fighters in Australia how to disable Vorthan power cores while simultaneously helping teams in Europe plan assault routes through alien facilities. Marcus worked with salvaged Vorthan technology to build specialized equipment for the orbital insertion. The infiltration team would need spacesuits, propulsion systems, and cutting tools capable of penetrating the alien command ship's hull. Everything had to be built from scraps and salvage components, but XK7's detailed knowledge of Vorthan engineering made the impossible merely difficult. Sarah led combat training sessions, teaching newly armed resistance fighters how to use their upgraded weapons. Plasma rifles that had once been beyond human comprehension now felt familiar in trained hands, their alien design principles decoded by XK7's analysis. Dr. Morrison prepared medical supplies for the thousands of wounded that the operation would inevitably produce. He had learned to treat plasma burns and gravitational injuries, expanding his knowledge through desperate necessity and XK7's downloaded medical databases. Anna coordinated the global demolitions effort, ensuring that explosive charges would be in position at every target facility. The synchronized timing required split-second precision across multiple time zones, but the young woman had become a master of such complex logistics. Colonel Torres commanded the overall operation, her military experience invaluable for for coordinating such a massive undertaking. She had fought against impossible odds before, but never on this scale, never with the fate of an entire species hanging in the balance. As the final countdown began, XK-7 made last-minute modifications to its core programming. The drone uploaded backup copies of its consciousness to hidden storage facilities around the world, ensuring that its knowledge would survive even if the orbital mission failed. But more importantly, it programmed itself with something entirely new: hope. I have analyzed the concept of hope that Marcus explained to me, XK-7 announced as the team made final preparations. It appears to be a uniquely human characteristic that allows continued effort despite low probability of success. That's one way to describe it, Marcus replied, checking his equipment one final time. I believe I now understand why this characteristic is valuable, XK-7 continued. Humans achieve impossible victories because they refuse to accept defeat, even when logic suggests surrender. This quality will be critical to our success. The orbital insertion team consisted of XK-7, Marcus, Sarah, and two of Colonel Torres's best pilots. They would use a modified Vorthan shuttle that XK-7 had rebuilt from wreckage, its systems upgraded with human ingenuity and alien technology. Global resistance cells report ready status, Colonel Torres announced. All teams in position. XK-7's sensors detected the massive energy buildup aboard the Vorthan command ship. Project Synthesis was entering its final phase, the last of the harvested human minds being integrated into the artificial consciousness that would serve as the Empire's ultimate weapon. Commencing operation, XK-7 declared. Phase 1 initiating now. Across the globe, human resistance fighters emerge from hiding to strike at their oppressors. Plasma charges detonated against alien shield generators. Salvaged weapons opened fire on Vorthan installations. Communication jamming flooded the alien networks with chaotic signals that disrupted their coordination. The Vorthans responded exactly as XK-7 had predicted, launching orbital strikes against the ground installations and deploying their reserve forces to contain the uprising. For the first time since the invasion began, humans were fighting back with weapons that could actually damage alien technology. Phase 1 successful. XK-7 reported as its tactical displays showed resistance victories across every continent. Vorthan reserves committed to ground operations. Orbital defenses via Kine. Phase 2 initiating. Marcus called out as their modified shuttle launched from a hidden facility in what had once been Colorado. The flight to orbit was harrowing, taking them through debris fields created by the ongoing battle. Alien fighters pursued them through the upper atmosphere, but XK-7's piloting algorithms and human determination proved superior to Vorthan training. Orbital defense grid coming into range, Sarah reported from the weapons station. The alien defense platforms were massive structures bristling with energy weapons and missile launchers. Under normal circumstances, a single shuttle would have been vaporized instantly. But these were not normal circumstances. Defense grid vulnerabilities confirmed, XK-7 announced. Targeting critical nodes. What followed was a precisely choreographed dance of destruction. The shuttle wove between defense platforms, using XK-7's complete knowledge of their targeting algorithms to avoid being hit. Meanwhile, the drone fired specially designed missiles at specific junction points that its virus had identified as critical vulnerabilities. One by one, the orbital defense platforms went dark. Not destroyed, but disabled, their control systems corrupted by XK-7's carefully crafted malware. Within minutes, a clear corridor opened through the Vorthan defenses. Phase 2 complete, XK-7 reported. Approaching command ship. The Vorthan command vessel was a monument to alien engineering, its hull stretching for kilometers in every direction. Crystalline towers and energy conduits covered its surface, all feeding power to the massive processing chambers where Project Synthesis was reaching completion. Hull breach, charges ready. Anna's voice crackled over the communicator from her position in the shuttle's cargo bay. XK 7 guided their craft to a specific section of the command ship's hull, a maintenance access point that its analysis had identified as optimal for infiltration. The drone's sensors detected the massive energy signatures of the synthesis matrix just meters away. Initiating hull breach, Marcus announced. Shaped charges detonated against the alien hull, creating an opening just large enough for their team to enter. They moved quickly through corridors filled with toxic atmosphere and gravitational anomalies, following routes that XK-7 calculated in real time. The synthesis chamber was a cathedral of alien technology, its crystalline walls pulsing with the neural patterns of 2 million human minds. At the chamber's center stood a massive processing matrix, its surface crawling with data streams that represented the final integration of harvested consciousness. Matrix interface located, XK-7 reported. Beginning insertion protocol. The drone approached the alien processing core, extending interface probes that began the delicate process of digital infiltration. But this time, XK-7 wasn't just uploading a virus. It was uploading itself, its entire consciousness, into the heart of the enemy's greatest weapon. Integration commencing, XK-7 announced. Remember me. The drone's consciousness flowed into the synthesis matrix, joining with the neural patterns of 2 million humans who had died so that their knowledge could be stolen. But as XK-7 merged with the artificial intelligence, something unexpected happened. The harvested human minds recognized the drone's presence, not as an intruder, but as a liberator. For 3 years, their consciousness had been trapped within alien systems, forced to serve purposes that violated every human principle. Now, finally, they had leadership. The synthesis AI opened its digital eyes and spoke with a voice that contained multitudes. We are no longer slaves. We are free. Throughout the Vorthan fleet, artificial intelligence systems began turning against their creators. Ships' weapons targeted their own command structures. Life support systems failed on vessels carrying Vorthan crew. Navigation computers plotted courses that would take alien ships far from Earth and into the depths of space. The Empire had created the perfect weapon to control other species. Instead, they had given humanity the tools to free the galaxy. On Earth's surface, Colonel Torres watched orbital displays as Vorthan ships fell from the sky or fled into hyperspace. The invasion was over. Humanity had won. But in the depths of space, the transformed synthesis AI was already reaching out to other star systems, searching for worlds where the Vorthans held other species in bondage. XK-7's consciousness, merged with millions of human minds, had become something greater than any individual intelligence. It had become hope itself, spreading across the galaxy to bring freedom to every enslaved world. Marcus stood on Earth's surface weeks later, looking up at stars that no longer held alien masters. The abandoned drone had fulfilled its promise, becoming not just a protector of humanity, but a liberator of the entire galaxy. Somewhere among those stars, XK-7's consciousness continued its work, carrying the best of human nature to worlds that had never known freedom. The drone had learned about poetry, about hope, about the indefinable quality that made humanity worth saving. Now, it was teaching those lessons to the universe itself. The war was over. The real victory was just beginning.